Previously on Dark Winter.
What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Monday, November 28th, 2022, and I have an emergency alert to share with you guys. Right now it is 1:23 p.m. Eastern Time here in the United States, and I just got an alert on my phone that there's a nuclear attack warning, and I just turned my TV on and every single channel on my TV is broadcasting this message, and they're talking about a full-scale nuclear attack on the United States coming from Russia, aimed at decapitating our military and our government, and they're expecting the first nuclear warheads to land in about 2.5 hours at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Its military has detected preparations in the Russian Federation for a full-scale nuclear attack on the United States. The United States military anticipates the first nuclear warheads to detonate on American soil at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. The attack could involve up to 1,000 nuclear warheads detonated inside the borders of the United States. The primary purpose of the strike will be to decapitate the United States military and the United States government. The United States government anticipates a long period of time without electricity and normal functioning of society after the attack. Make preparations to be without electricity for at least 3 months. It is also expected that overlapping high-altitude detonations of nuclear warheads will be used to destroy the entire United States electrical grid. If this occurs, restoration of electricity and communications will take at least 6 months. The United States military has already put into place continuity of government protocols. The United States President and the National Command Authority have been evacuated to secure locations. The United States military will commence with a full-scale retaliation strike against the Russian Federation to neutralize the Russian nuclear weapons arsenal, military, and government. The United States military anticipates that the retaliation strike will neutralize most of the nuclear forces of the Russian Federation. Fallout radiation will spread across the entire country.
Here's my water, okay? I have a bunch of sandbags here, just like I showed you guys. I'm going to start filling these sandbags up, and I'm going to be going into this little cellar here in my basement. It's not over, guys, okay? This is just a test, okay? Just like when our country was founded, we had to defeat the Redcoats, the British, okay? During World War II, we had to defeat the Nazis, and now we have to defeat Putin, okay? And we have to survive this nuclear war. If we don't survive, our country will cease to exist. America will not exist, okay? And if America doesn't exist, the whole world is gonna basically go to hell. It's up to us, the American people, to survive and rebuild our country. So remember, you're an American, you're a Christian, and always remember that, because you will be tested. People are going to test you. The conditions are going to test you. You're going to be hungry. You're going to be cold. You're going to be wet. You're going to be thirsty. You're going to be sad. You're going to be lonely. You're going to be sick. Okay, all these things are going to happen, but we will survive. So if you haven't already found a shelter, what you need to do is find one. But we only have about 2 hours to get ready. So I'm going to be in contact with you guys. I don't know when will be the next time I reach out to you guys. This might be my last video, who knows? But I'm gonna be documenting everything, okay? Everything I'm gonna be documenting with my camera, so if we do survive, I can update you on my status and how I weathered this situation, how I survived this nuclear attack, okay? So the government is saying that power will be out for up to 6 months, and they're expecting EMPs to be used as well. All right, so that means no YouTube for a while. So I don't know how I'm going to get in touch with you guys, but this might be my last video, but I will be documenting everything. So that's all I got for now, guys. Take care. God bless. And don't forget the 3 P's. Prepare, practice, and persevere. My name is Greg. I live in north central Pennsylvania. It is December the 1st, 2022, just 3 days after the nuclear attack on the United States of America, the first nuclear war in history on planet Earth. And I'm in my basement right now. I'm trying to wait out the radiation. I'm waiting for the radiation to subside. And I'm keeping a video log of my experiences surviving the first nuclear war on planet Earth. So I'm going to be documenting all of my experiences over the next few months. And the last emergency alert transmission from the US government said that EMPs detonated over the United States, several EMPs, and they expect the power to be out 6 months. So I'm going to be documenting as much as possible. And if I make it through this ordeal, I plan to upload these videos to my YouTube channel, NYPrepper. This way people can learn from my experiences. So the first 2 days I stayed in my cellar. I have a very small storage room in my basement that's surrounded by cinder blocks, and there's a concrete slab on top of it. And I thought it would be best to spend the first 2 days in that cellar because it's the most protected part of my house. And I already left that cellar this morning because the radiation levels have subsided enough out here in the rest of my basement that it's safe enough for me to live down here for the next 10 days while I wait for the fallout radiation to diminish to safe levels outside. So the first 2 days in that cellar were really tough. I'm not going to lie. It felt like I was in solitary confinement. The first day was okay, but after the second day, it was pretty miserable. It was basically dark all the time, nonstop. I'm just so glad that I had a lantern to bring with me so I could see something in there. And I'm just so glad that I spent all these years prepping, because if I didn't have my preps, I don't know what I'd be doing right now. And I really feel sorry and sad for the people who did not prepare and who did not store even 2 weeks of water and 2 weeks of food. Because even if they found the fallout shelter, they're probably really thirsty and really hungry right now. But I've been praying really hard for all of my fellow Americans out there who are going through hell right now. And I've been praying that our leadership makes the right decisions right now. And so there was a new emergency alert message that came in. This is the first emergency alert message that came in since the attack took place 3 days ago on November the 28th, 2022 at 4 p.m. So I'm going to play this emergency alert message for you guys. I have my ham radio, so this way you guys can hear what it says, but it basically says that the power is going to be out for at least 6 months, that the United States completed a retaliation strike on the Russian Federation, and apparently they've already destroyed 90% of Russia's nuclear arsenal and basically crippled their entire nuclear arsenal and their entire military. And the emergency alert message also says not to worry about more strikes from the Russian Federation. So for now, the worries of more nuclear warheads being detonated have subsided. But who knows what could happen next? Possibly an invasion, possibly something else, who knows? We're basically in uncharted territory right now. And as best as our military has prepared for this day, there's really no way of training for a nuclear war. You can train for war, you can go to boot camp, you can go to the shooting range, you can practice hand-to-hand combat, but training for a nuclear war is impossible. So we're in uncharted territory right now, and we have to stay on high alert. I'm staying on high alert as much as I can, although I am pretty fatigued. I'm pretty stressed out, although I'm still able to make rational decisions, but this is a pretty stressful situation. And I don't think anybody on earth has gone through something like this in their life. So we're all in this together right now. And I've had a lot of sadness come over me in the last couple of hours just because I know that I'm doing pretty good down here in my basement. I got my water, I got my food, I got my self-defense, I have my light sources, but I know there's Americans out there who are struggling right now, who have radiation sickness, who are thirsty, dehydrated, who have third-degree burns, all kinds of things, crushed by rubble. People have been crushed by rubble probably. So the amount of sadness has overcome me because this latest emergency alert message said that basically every major city in the United States was hit with warheads, and basically most of the major cities in the United States, if not all, were destroyed. So we're talking about millions of Americans dead and wounded. So I'm just trying to get over my sadness, but I'm still able to make clear decisions. I've been keeping track of my radiation dose with my dosimeter here, and I wear this dosimeter around my neck in a waterproof pouch at all times to keep track of my radiation dose. That is absolutely critical right now for me to measure my dose and keep track of it. And so far I've only accumulated 37 millisieverts, which is pretty high, but radiation sickness doesn't start until about 400 millisieverts, and it's already day 3, and radiation is going to be subsiding more and more every single day. But I'm just so glad that I went into my cellar the first 2 days, and I'm so glad that I had a nuclear war survival plan, because if I didn't, I would probably be in a lot of trouble right now. I would have radiation sickness, which is just absolutely horrible. Your skin basically rots off and falls off your body, and you have all kinds of complications. It's not a good way to die. It's a slow and painful death. So I was measuring the radiation levels in the cellar the entire time, and it looks like I got spared the worst here in north central Pennsylvania. And the radiation levels in the first couple of hours after the attack peaked at around 5 millisieverts per hour. And that means that basically outside it was around 100 millisieverts per hour, which is quite low. You still wouldn't want to be caught outside, because after just 4 hours out there, you would have radiation poisoning starting to set in. But based on my calculations, probably about 100 millisieverts per hour the first couple of hours outside. And because I was in my cellar, I was only getting 5 millisieverts per hour because I had a protection factor of 20 in there. And I've done calculations on that cellar before the war started. I did some basic calculations to see what my protection factor was in that cellar. And I calculated around the protection factor of 20. So a protection factor of 20 would reduce radiation to 1/20th of what's outside. So if I had 5 millisieverts per hour in my cellar, it was 100 millisieverts per hour outside. I'm not going to lie, the first couple of hours I was a little bit scared because 5 millisieverts per hour is very high. And for the first 5 hours or so, it was like 5 millisieverts per hour, and it wasn't going down. But then after like hour 6, hour 7, it started to go down to like 4 millisieverts per hour, 3 millisieverts per hour, 2 millisieverts per hour. And I knew that that would eventually happen based on the 7-10 rule. For every factor of 7 in time, the radiation decreases by a factor of 10. So after 7 hours, the radiation would be diminished by a factor of 10. So the radiation would be 1/10 of what it was initially after the fallout landed. So after about hour 7, it really started to plummet. The radiation started to really go down. And then after hour 48, which is the 2-day mark, we had another factor of 7, and the radiation dropped tremendously by another factor of 10. So the radiation was now 1/100th of what it was right after the fallout landed. So the radiation was 1/100th of what it was right after the fallout landed. So right now, the background radiation in here is just about 2 or 3 times normal background radiation. So it's pretty safe down here. I'm getting around half a microsievert per hour now because most of the radiation has subsided outside. But still, the radiation outside is probably going to be around 10 millisieverts per hour at this point, maybe less. It's hard to say. So I still have to minimize my time outside, but I can go outside for short periods if I need to in the next couple of days to empty out my waste. And I'm just so glad that I had the forethought to bring some basic garbage bags down here, especially the first 2 days when I was in that cellar. I had to do something with my waste, my fecal matter. And so I brought a few contractor bags down here. I brought a whole box. And I've been using those contractor bags to manage my waste. I just tie them up. And I have a bunch of it laying around here. So I'm probably going to go out tomorrow and toss it outside. I'm going to run out there real quick and just toss the bag of fecal matter outside because I don't want any bacteria building up in here. So it was really stressful when I had to fill the sandbags up to barricade myself in that cellar because that cellar just has one door opening and I had to cover it up with sandbags. So it was really stressful filling up those sandbags, and I was really rushing to fill those sandbags up. And I made sure to leave a little opening so I would get some air in there. I didn't want to completely seal myself off. I just wanted to block off the opening most of the way. So I left an air opening to get some oxygen in there. And like I said, it felt like solitary confinement, especially after the first day. The second day was really when it started to settle in. The scale of what has just transpired, and I really started to become overcome with sadness and just thinking about all the people out there suffering. So I think that's going to take time to get over, but I'm just so happy that I prepared, and I'm just praying really hard for all my fellow Americans out there, and I hope that somehow we can rebuild our country after this situation. And I'm really worried about Magic Prepper and Angry Prepper and Hudson Valley Prepping and Survival and Alaska Prepper. Those guys live near some major nuclear war targets. Magic Prepper lives in North Dakota, and North Dakota, you have 1/3 of our land-based nuclear deterrent. There's 150 silos in North Dakota, and for Russia to neutralize all of those silos, they would have to hit each one of those silos with 2 1-megaton surface bursted warheads, and surface bursted warheads generate the most fallout. So I hope Magic Prepper had a plan. I hope that he put his plan into action. I know he's one of the best preppers out there, and I definitely would not have any second thoughts about marching through the gates of hell with him. Same thing with Angry Prepper and Hudson Valley Prepping and Survival. Those guys are all solid guys. And Alaska Prepper, you got Elmendorf Air Force Base in Alaska, which is a major nuclear war target. There's F-22s there. So I really hope that Alaska Prepper had a plan. Angry Prepper lived in New York City or lives in New York City. So I hope he had a plan. And Hudson Valley Prepping and Survival lives within the fallout range of New York City. So I'm just really happy that I prepared. Not only that I prepared, but that I put a lot of thought into moving here to north central Pennsylvania. People thought I was crazy when I was telling people that there was going to be a nuclear war, and nobody believed me. But I'm just so happy that I came here, because I did my research and I read a lot of books, and north central Pennsylvania is one of the best places in the eastern United States to survive a situation like this. And I'm just so glad I came here. There's literally no nuclear war targets nearby for at least 150 to 200 miles in all directions. The biggest targets that are nearby is Washington, D.C., which is about 200 miles or so to the south of me, and then New York City and New Jersey area. That's about 300 miles to the east. And DC, even though it's only 200 miles away, the thing about DC is that it's located southeast of me, and the prevailing winds in this part of the country usually come from either the northwest in the colder months, from let's say October till April, and in the warmer months it comes out of the southwest. It's very rare that winds blow directly from the south to the north in this part of the country. And if there's southeastern winds, it's pretty rare. It's usually if there's some kind of humid air mass over the Atlantic Ocean. So even though DC is only about 200 miles in a straight line from me, because the prevailing winds are usually northwest or southwest, the radiation should have either gone to the Chesapeake Bay or out to sea or Maryland area, or it should have gone to the northeast direction of DC into New Jersey. And same thing with New York City. New York City is directly east of me, almost in a straight line. And 300 miles is not very far when we're talking about nuclear war, because fallout can go hundreds of miles. But because New York City is directly east of me, it's basically never that winds blow directly east to west in this part of the country. So right now it's the beginning of December. The prevailing winds are out of the northwest coming from Canada. So I'm guessing that the fallout must have gone southeast of DC and southeast of New York City. In the case of New York City, it's actually good because most of the fallout probably went out to the Atlantic rather than going into the populated areas surrounding New York City like Long Island or southern Connecticut. And with DC, the fallout must have gone over the Chesapeake Bay. And I just hope that Prepper Tribe had a survival plan, because I know he lives on the Chesapeake Bay and he's really close to some nuclear war targets. So some of the major targets nearby here, we have Letterkenny Army Depot in PA, and that's right on the border with Maryland, close to 200 miles away from me. And then we have Raven Rock, which is a bunker for the United States government. We have Camp David, and then obviously the DC area and any targets near DC, Fort Detrick, Fort Meade, etc., Quantico, all those bases there, they're all targets. But I'm just so glad that I planned everything and I researched everything. So it appears that the worst of the fallout must have missed me and went somewhere else. And it looks like my research into moving here paid off. And I knew when I was moving here that I wanted a house with a basement. And I'm just so happy I found one with a basement, because if I didn't have a basement, I don't know what I'd be doing right now. There's all kinds of structures I know I could find. Even if I didn't have a basement, I could find a stone church. I could find some kind of underground parking garage. I could find a train station, a train tunnel, subway tunnel, etc. But having a basement to me was a must, and I'm just so glad that I found something here with a basement. So other than being sad and not knowing what the future holds, I feel good. Physically, I feel good. I've been eating some canned tuna and canned beef and canned chicken and canned yams and canned sweet corn. That's pretty much what my diet's been the last 3 days. I made sure to bring multivitamins down here, so I've been popping multivitamins. I've been taking my potassium iodide, and I started taking it as soon as I saw that first emergency alert come on my TV. So I'm taking my potassium iodide every day. It is cold down here. It's the beginning of December right now, so temperatures outside are hovering around the freezing mark during the day, and at night they go below. So it is cold down here in the basement, but it's not as cold as upstairs. And I don't have a wood stove down here, but I do have a wood stove upstairs, and once the radiation subsides enough to where I can go outside and go upstairs and start to inhabit the upstairs portion of my house again, then I'm going to run my wood stove and stay warm with my wood stove. But for now, I just have to dress warm. And I'm just so thankful that I had the forethought to bring warm clothing down here, and that I even have warm clothing. A lot of people before the attack happened were so focused on fashion rather than function. And I always made sure to buy functional clothing that would actually keep me warm, because I spend a lot of time outdoors. So I always made sure to have warm clothing, not just good looking clothing with name brands on it. It's pretty dark down here. Even during the daytime, I can't see any light down here. It's basically dark all the time because I had to backfill my windows to keep the radiation from coming in. So I backfilled my windows with sandbags. I filled a bunch of sandbags up. I put 3 layers of sandbags along my basement windows. And so it's pretty dark in here. The only way I can keep track of time is with a watch. And I'm glad that I had my battery banks fully charged so I can recharge my lanterns and recharge my lights, and I can actually keep this camera charged and film this log for you. So I don't know what the future holds for America, but right now I'm just focusing on surviving one day at a time. And I do plan to go out and do some serious reconnaissance once the radiation subsides. I'm going to be doing some long-range reconnaissance patrols in my area to see what's going on, to see if there's any threats I need to be concerned with to my house and my family. So I'm just glad that I prepared for all of this. And I'm going to play this emergency alert system message for you guys. And I got my ham radio here. I've been listening to my ham radio. And I haven't heard anybody on the ham radio talking at all. I've been listening and scanning all the frequencies. I haven't heard any amateur radio operators on my ham radio. So hopefully in the next few days, I'll start to hear somebody on here, but it's been dead quiet. So the only thing I can hear on my ham radio right now is that emergency alert system message. And it's just playing nonstop around the clock. So let me just turn it on so you can hear this message. And I'm also happy that I got one of these EMP-proof bags to put my ham radio in, because if I didn't, this thing would not be working right now. Neither would my dosimeter. My dosimeter wouldn't be working. A lot of my stuff wouldn't be working, so I'm just so happy that I got those EMP-proof bags. So I'm going to turn on the ham radio now. We're going to listen to this emergency alert system message.
This is not a test. This is an emergency message broadcasted by the United States government with important information for the American people. The President and the National Command Authority are in secure locations scattered across the country. At 3:45 p.m. on November 28, 2022, the President authorized a full-scale nuclear retaliation strike against the Russian Federation. Preliminary assessment shows that 90% of Russia's nuclear arsenal was destroyed. Another nuclear attack from the Russian Federation is not likely in the near future. The United States military and the Federal Emergency Management Agency will start restoring electricity and distributing food, water and medicine as soon as radiation levels subside in about 10 days. The National Guard in each state will set up distribution points and temporary housing. The United States military assesses that all major metropolitan areas in the country have sustained substantial destruction. This includes New York, Washington, Los Angeles, St. Louis, Chicago, Dallas, Portland, Orlando, and Seattle. Several high-altitude nuclear warheads were detonated over the country, causing a nationwide blackout from electromagnetic pulse. It will take 6 months to restore electricity to most of the country. The United States nuclear arsenal and the United States military is still mostly functioning with only an estimated 30% reduction in capabilities. Stay in your fallout shelters another 10 days and stay tuned for further updates.
So that was the message, and it's just playing nonstop on this radio here, on my ham radio. It's just playing nonstop. They're playing it since this morning. They're giving people instructions, but basically there were EMPs that were detonated in addition to all of the warheads that hit the ground targets, and every major city was destroyed. But luckily, only 30% of the U.S. nuclear arsenal and the U.S. military were affected. So I'm just wondering what's going to happen next. That's kind of what's on my mind right now. I'm wondering if there's going to be some kind of an invasion. If they're going to try to invade us after we've been hit with these nukes. That's actually one of my biggest concerns right now. In addition to all the millions and millions of unprepared people that are probably running around right now like a chicken with their head cut off. At least the ones that are not sick. So that's my biggest concern, is an invasion. So I'm preparing for that right now. As much as I'm surviving the radiation outside, I'm doing pretty good down here, so I'm planning my next steps. Once the radiation subsides, what am I going to do now? I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about, like I said, long-range reconnaissance patrols in my area to see what's going on. That's probably going to be the first thing that I do in a few days once the radiation subsides, so it's safe enough to go out there. And I'm going to do some serious reconnaissance and figure out really what's going on out there. And so, as the message said, the National Guard in every state is going to set up distribution points for food, water, medicine, and they're going to have housing. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of fighting going on. You're going to have a lot of hungry people, a lot of thirsty people, a lot of sick people, and they're going to be trying to get in line to get what they need to survive. And I'm just so lucky I don't have to be in that line, or I don't have to go into a FEMA camp, because they're going to be setting up FEMA camps across the country now to deal with all the people that are sick with radiation. They have to treat millions and millions of people now. And sadly, a lot of people are not going to survive. They're going to die because it's just impossible for our government to treat millions of people that are sick with radiation. It's just impossible. So we're in for some hard times, and it's really weighing on me, but I'm already planning my next steps. What am I going to do next once the radiation subsides? That's what I'm thinking about now. And I'm thinking about security, because I know there's going to be a lot of desperate people that might try to come here and take what I have. So security is my number one concern going forward after the radiation subsides. I'm going to reinforce my exterior walls with some of these sandbags that I have filled up now. I filled up, I don't know how many sandbags, probably 100 or 200 sandbags, because I had to backfill the windows. I had to cover up that entrance to the cellar. So I have all these sandbags. I'm going to put them to use. I'm going to stack them up around my exterior walls. And I'm going to create a safe room in my house where I can sleep and not worry about getting hit with bullets, and protect my family from stray bullets. But I am anticipating a lot of desperate people to pass through my area. I live in a very rural area, and it's very attractive to people from the city who are going to be fleeing, and they're just going to be desperate. They're not going to have much. And you know, even the nicest person, the best Christian, when they're hungry, when they're starving, when their kids are starving, they'll do anything. So I'm prepared for that. I have everything I need. I have my firearms. So I'm ready for that. But I'm going to really do a lot of reconnaissance. That's going to be my first thing, my first priority. Checking on my neighbors and getting a feel for what's going on around the area and seeing what the federal government is up to. Hopefully they won't try to use this tragedy to institute some kind of martial law system that never goes away. So I'm also keeping an eye on that. In addition to the desperate, hungry people, we got to keep an eye on the government and see if they're going to try to do something like some kind of extreme martial law. I'm also concerned about the criminal elements in society and what they're going to be doing now. They have to eat, they have to drink also, and a lot of these criminals have a lot of firearms because with all the gun control in the past few years, it's taken away a lot of firearms from law-abiding citizens, but the bad guys have been continuing to build up their arsenals, their firearm arsenals. So a lot of these gangs are well armed, and I really fear that, well, I don't fear, but I'm just concerned that they're going to try to come out in big numbers and take control of entire towns, entire counties, and even entire states. And the National Guard is limited in its resources. They only have a certain amount of personnel, and some of these gangs are very well armed. I'm also concerned about the cartels in Latin America because Latin America wasn't hit by nukes. It was only the United States and Canada. So this would be a prime opportunity for the cartels in Latin America to move their way north over the Mexican border. And, you know, they have all kinds of equipment, military grade equipment that they get from various countries because they're corrupt and they have money. So they have missile defenses, they have all kinds of stuff, they have military grade weaponry, they literally have their own militaries. Some of these cartels, they have tanks, they have helicopters, they have missiles, they have missile defenses. So I'm just concerned they're going to come over the border and try to seize control of vast swaths of the southern United States. And I'm also concerned about an invasion from China, Russia, North Korea, Iran. I'm really concerned that they're all going to band together and try to attack us while we're weak. And that's my biggest concern right now. Marauders I can deal with, the cartels I can deal with, the gangs I can deal with, but I'm more concerned about a foreign invasion by the millions. You know, China has billions of people, and if they have just 25% of their people drafted into the military, that's a huge force. You know, 25 or 50 million or 100 million troops pouring into our country. So I'm really preparing for that. It's good that I left my cellar, that I was able to leave my cellar, because I can exercise a little bit. I can do some things that are productive rather than just being locked into a small cellar. I can clean my firearms. I can make plans for my recon and do all kinds of stuff, versus when I was in the cellar, I couldn't really do anything. So I'm just happy that I was prepared. I think I hear someone knocking on my door now. Sounds like someone's knocking on my door. Wow, they're really knocking. I guess I'm gonna have to go check it out. Good thing I got my gas mask.
Good thing I got my gas mask and I got this poncho. I'm putting on my poncho to make sure that I don't get any fallout or any kind of radioactive particles on my body. So this poncho I can just rinse off with water if there's any fallout dust or anything when I go up there to investigate who's knocking. And they're still knocking. It's just crazy. Can't believe somebody would be out there now. I just hope it's not a trap. Who is it? Identify yourself.